Do you believe in ghosts?
No, sadly. I don't believe in ghosts. I wish I did. I really wish I did. And I probably did believe in ghosts up until I did my paranormal podcast.
Hello, welcome to Guides the Unknown. I'm Kristen.
And I'm her little brother, William.
And this week we've got a special episode. We have Derrick Acosta from MEGA64 joining us on the show. We don't usually have guests. This is like a huge thing.
No, this was really kind of fun. Yeah, I think we could probably count on one hand the amount of times that we've done an episode where we like sit down and speak with a guest. Mm-hmm. But very specifically, I wanted to reach out to Derrick Acosta because if anybody is aware of MEGA64, for the last month, there was like an announcement that they were worried they were going to go out of business. This is like a comedy troupe, essentially. They have a podcast that's been running for, basically since the beginning of podcasts. They've been doing sketches based in video games going back to the early 2000s. Like, this is a very iconic and storied group of creators and comedians.
They truly are, like, kind of early YouTube sort of stuff.
Yeah, I think even pre-YouTube, which is crazy.
I'm sure that's true.
But I'm a big fan, and when they sort of revealed about a month ago that they were worried that they wouldn't be able to continue on, just with like this state of, I don't know, whatever. You can go listen to their stuff for like a deep dive of what they were dealing with. But there was this tremendous outpouring of love and support for them. We were a part of that as well.
Yep.
And so I had reached out to Derrick because Derrick Acosta is also a big horror fan. And I figured if there's any way for Guide to the Unknown for us to try to support MEGA64, a really great way to do that would be through connecting over horror and really trying to rally our troops to like check out MEGA64 and support them and show them some love. And also selfishly, it was nice to just talk to Derrick Acosta about things like MEGA64 in general, some of the awesome horror sketches that they've done, really standout, funny horror-themed things that have happened on streams with them, but then also talk about some of the other creative things that he does in particular. He's got a horror comic called Phobia that is coming out. All these things, we're going to have links in the show notes, by the way. And just talk about movies and talk about ghosts and aliens. You know how Guide to the Unknown is. It was very sort of like stream of consciousness. And you'll hear me be maybe too effusive. I don't know.
I mean, same. In the beginning, I felt a little embarrassed. But, what are you going to do?
It was cool.
It was cool. Like, I really am a big fan. Like, you definitely are like a super mega... No pun intended. But I really am a big fan. It was very cool. And I have to say, like, wanting to support MEGA64, after this whole thing, is definitely something we wanted to do. But I also wanted to mention that supporting other people's projects goes both ways because correct me if I'm wrong, Will, like, I don't know if this was partially born out of Derrick tweeting out just to everybody, let me know about your projects and I will, signal boost them on Black Friday.
Yeah,
and that
true.
was just because, like, just wanting to support other creators. So I don't know.
Yes.
It's just a cool thing to do. People deciding to support each other in their creative endeavors.
I think you're right about that. Because I think that there's also this thing of, MEGA64 is kind of a juggernaut.
Yeah.
But, we've got our corner of the internet that I feel very confident about and like really, really enjoy.
Yeah, I love it.
And as much as those are sort of like two separate universes of making stuff, like everyone's just trying to do shows and have a good time and create entertainment and cultivate an audience and be able to also like have a lifestyle and have an income and
live a
all
life.
These things, live a life. And so I really think like, I guess like in pursuit of really trying to like, a high tide raises all ships. Like,
yeah,
I think I said it before we even started recording. Like, I don't want to see MEGA64 go down. Like, what hope does anyone have? They're huge.
Right.
And so the idea that we were able to make contact and that Derrick was available to like hang out and do a show was really a lot of fun. And I think that conceivably we might benefit more from this than they will.
I mean, likely, honestly.
But listen, it's all in pursuit of like just trying to do the thing that you love and have it be a healthy thing that continues. And in our small way, we want to contribute to MEGA64 sticking around. Say to our audience, go check out their projects, because I co-sign them. I think they're so much fun.
Oh, same. And a lot of our audience already does too.
Yes.
You know?
But there's not a single, as effusive as I get in this conversation that you're going to hear, not a single word of it is a lie.
Mm-hmm.
I do listen to MEGA64 a lot, even like re-listening to old podcasts. The way that people tell us that they enjoy Guide to the Unknown a lot is the way that I enjoy MEGA64. Yeah. So let's jump right to it. It's a conversation that is a lot of fun. It gets interestingly kind of deep at times about the nature of believing in UFOs and aliens and stuff, but there's a lot of fun of talking about horror movies as well. All right, without any further ado, I think it's time to get to the main event. Although I should say we'll hear from Derrick of MEGA64 after this quick commercial break. Okay, and here's our conversation with Derrick Acosta of MEGA64. Whoosh. All right, Derrick Acosta, thank you so much for joining us.
Hey, Will and Kristen, thanks for having me. Happy to be here.
I wanted to talk to you about, honestly, a number. I was telling Kristen before we started recording, I was like, I actually feel like I have no shortage of things that I want to talk to you about or pick your brain about. And so I think probably the smartest way to go right off the top is to say that MEGA64, I think, is pretty, in my sphere, completely ubiquitous. Like everybody that I know knows MEGA64.
Oh yeah.
And I can personally say that like I've been right now I'm sort of at the tail end of a parental leave.
Okay.
And
what's
so
a parental leave?
Well, I just had a kid.
Oh, okay. Congratulations.
Thank you very much. So we've been, we took a break from recording the show every week. We did like a bulk, like recording a ton of episodes for like months so that we never missed a beat with the podcast. But so my wife and I were just sort of like working around the house today, and I realized that I had you on the calendar to talk to tonight, and yet I spent all day like tidying up my little studio basement, and I was listening to MEGA64 all day.
Oh wow.
The Derrick kind of day.
You feel like you're probably sick of me at this point.
I've had enough, if I'm being completely honest. No, yeah. I think a lot of people have that experience, and I'm sure that you've heard that from a lot of people too, that like MEGA64 for a lot of people is sort of like a comfort food, like especially the podcast or like the many live streams. What I'm essentially trying to set up for our audience listening is that I know that for Guide to the Unknown listeners, we get a lot of comments that people listen to Guide to the Unknown, like go back and start from episode 1 and listen to the entire catalog, or they'll have us on when it almost sounds like it could be insulting. They'll be like, I listened to you to fall asleep. And
oh like, yeah, I love that when people are like, I put you on and then I just don't pay attention,
I stop existing. I go unconscious while I'm listening to you.
No higher compliment, honestly. If I can help people zone out, great.
Yeah, completely.
White noise in human
form. Something about when you just talk, I just check out,
Right.
I disappear for hours on end.
Yeah.
But so I think that MEGA64 for me for a number of years has been like, if I'm doing something, I typically have you guys on in some capacity. Not exclusively. I don't want to give you the impression that you're all I do. But
of course not.
Part of the reason why I was interested to talk to you today is because of all of this sort of like news around MEGA64, which for like a tremendous chunk of the internet, there was like so much energy around making sure that you were all right. because I don't think that anybody ever expected. I think that, and I promise I'll let you talk, but I think that
I'm enjoying this.
You guys had I had gotten the notification that you were going live, and I don't remember what the stream was called. It was called like We Need to Talk or something.
I think it was called Save MEGA64.
Oh, was it straight up called Save MEGA64?
Yeah. No bullshit. No bones about it.
I know, because I got the email and I was alarmed.
As blunt as possible. Well, there was a discussion internally, like, should we advertise this? What's the best way to market this? And it was like, this is not an advertising marketing situation. This is, I think people need to realize this might be the last time we talk to them on camera. So we needed to be as forthcoming as possible, I felt.
I was pretty amazed at how everything not surprised really, but so many people really tried to make a concerted effort to be like, hey everybody, MEGA64 is in rough shape and they might stop existing. And the amount of people that were like, well, that is not allowed to happen, that's not permissible. And like people going to your Patreon, and people, you've now got I still don't understand if it's Ko-Fi or coffee, whatever that is.
I don't know. Apparently it's coffee, but my brain won't read that and pronounce coffee. So
no, that's not how a dash works.
Yeah, Ko-Fi.
Yeah. It was pretty incredible. And so that's why at the very start of it, I was like, oh my God, if there's any way to help try to like boost the signal. Now we've got like, Guide to the Unknown, we've got a very dedicated, wonderful community of listeners around us. If you look at our YouTube, it's abysmal. If you look at any of the stats that nobody can see, we're doing pretty well. And so I really was like, well, I've tried in the past to be like, wouldn't it be cool to do some sort of a crossover, especially when you were doing the paranormal podcast, Mega Strange.
Mm-hmm.
And it just never sort of like materialized. But now more than ever, I was like, listen, let's try to like really shout out MEGA64. And so that's why I was pumped when you got in contact with us as well and agreed to do the show, because there are other things I want to talk about in the horror sphere. But in the interest of making sure that everybody knows MEGA64, because I really do think that at least tonally, our audience, I think, could jump to MEGA64 and feel like they are equally in like a hangout kind of headspace where like it's just all of you. Like how many of you are in MEGA64 now?
Oh, yeah. Well, first of all, thank you for all the kind words. I really appreciate it. It's always like just really nice to hear that. There are 7 of us total in MEGA64. It's me, Rocco, and Sean, the 3 founders. And then we have 4 friends who have joined the company. And this is our 21st year in business together. So, yeah, it's still a small crew, just 7.
But that's what makes it especially strong, in my estimation, at least. And when I say that, I think our audience could, if people that listen to us are not familiar with MEGA64, obviously I greatly recommend that people go check you out. But I also mean like tonally, I think that the fact that there are 7 of you that are making the sheer amount of things that you make, from streams to sketches, to, I mean, the versions, which are essentially the TV series and movies that you've got on your Patreon. I think that people could jump over to you and pick up on just like the vibe of fun that we try to have here. And so any of our audience listening right now, everybody go check out MEGA64. We'll just do the plugs right this second while I'm saying it. What are the best, YouTube especially, or Twitch?
Yeah, go check out MEGA64. We are a YouTube channel. We started actually as a public access TV show, and it was very DIY. But in this reverse weird kind of logic, we decided to plug the public access TV show. We would upload videos to YouTube, right? Because the public access San Diego was clearly the most important thing on the agenda. Yeah, so YouTube kind of took off for us back in the day, and that is where we have uploaded the bulk of our videos. So if you just are new to MEGA64 and you want to see what we're all about, it's all available on our YouTube channel. It started with out in public comedy skits, recreating video games, and just like messing with people back in the day, kind of like pushing the envelope of what is socially acceptable. I think our guide was to never be like intrusive or mean to people, but maybe just like slightly annoying, and see how testy the public was. We don't really do too many public skits. We haven't done one in a while, actually, since the pandemic happened. It got really weird to just engage with strangers out there. But I do think that is something we will eventually return to. But it's expanded beyond just that. And so we have podcasts, we have comedy skits that are kind of cinematic and written. And of course, the public access show is available on Blu-ray as well, which you can watch through our Patreon, or you can get a physical copy from shop.mega64.com or our website, mega64.com.
Yeah, perfect. I dare say that you guys are iconic. Still, when people talk about the phrase "the graphics are superb" is burned into my brain from like an old video. Whenever anybody says that graphics are good in something, I won't say it out loud because nobody will know what I'm talking about, but it's from an old ass MEGA64 video, and I think the graphics are superb. Like, there are just so many things that you guys have done that are formative to me. And yeah, I think everybody would super enjoy everything you've done if they haven't checked it out. Flame War Theater, hello.
I know.
It's so good.
Sometimes I end up like thinking of a quote, and then I'm like, oh, that's a MEGA64. I'm quoting myself, just these things kind of get stuck in my own mind. And Flame War Theater is one of the most quotable. I can say that with no ego, because we didn't even really write Flame War Theater. We were just finding people arguing on message boards and forums, and like, what if we were in a room actually saying this to one another? And it's completely unhinged, and
it is totally so goddamn funny. It is some of them are like sort of like legendary internet threads that you then acted out, and some of them are just so obscure that I'd never heard of them before, all culminating with the Blade 2 review from Henry Knowles or whatever his name is.
Yeah, I think that was our grand finale. We've talked about doing Flame War Theater again, but we kind of did mine all those famous message board arguments, like you said. But I think if there was a way to go into like the Instagram comment section, there's some good material in there. It's hard to kind of, find a record of that stuff. We might just have to screen cap it or something. But
yeah, true.
People are still fighting on the internet, so we can still do Flame War Theater.
That's all they do.
Yeah, there's no shortage of material.
Exactly.
So I wanted to ask you a few questions. I know that we're doing things almost like backwards, like plug up front, whatever. But I don't know. I thought it made a certain amount of sense.
We're just flying by the seat of our pants here.
I'm not an interviewer. I don't know what I'm doing.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask you. So like, what we do is mostly like it's all like it's mostly just like talking about horror.
Okay.
On this show specifically, we don't do anything that's like literally scary, but we'll talk about, folklore, urban legends,
I love
horror movies a lot. And so one of the things that I like about MEGA64 is that periodically you will do things that are specifically like in the horror field. Like you do around Halloween, you do the Interactive Hell Festival, which is essentially like an all-day stream where you play horror games and you talk about horror things. But also because of the like skits and everything, like and I know that you're like the horror oriented guy of the crew.
Yeah, I have to fight sometimes to get that in there.
Yeah.
There's another guy in our crew, Garrett, who also loves horror movies. And between the two of us, we kind of handle all of those ideas and productions. But there's a lot of people in MEGA64 and in the world, surprisingly, who are just like, I don't do horror. I just don't watch it. I don't get it. And they kind of look at you like a freak sometimes when you're like, for example, we just did a podcast where I reviewed Terrifier 3, which I don't know if you guys
I have not seen it yet. No.
Have you seen any of those Terrifier movies?
No, it doesn't seem like my deal.
Fair enough. They're
Yeah.
fucked up. They're like
Yeah.
really brutal. They're super gory. But I was making this argument on their behalf that I feel like they are also done with a thin layer of sense of humor. You know, because it gets to a point where you just have to realize it's not real. This is fake. These are a bunch of people doing special effects, and they have to know how crazy this is. And they at some point they have to laugh. Like, I can't believe we're filming this and we're going to release this in a theater for people to see. It's almost like they're playing a prank on the audience.
Yeah.
And
I get that.
Yeah, I just feel like the main character is a clown. He's kind of macabre and tongue in cheek with all of this stuff. There's a thin layer of humor, but a lot of people just did not perceive that when we were giving, a review, and they're like, wow, funny stuff. Ha ha.
Yeah, I struggle with how people don't see it too. Where it's like, because this is so the thing where it's like most people would say that like, oh, horror is not for me. It's disgusting. It's nothing but like violence and gore, whatever. And then like one of the best picture winners of all time is Silence of the Lambs, and it's agreed that that's like a work of art. The Shining is a work of art. Like, horror is 1,000 different tones and styles.
Yeah.
But when people hear the word, they assume that it specifically is like Art the Clown sawing someone in half, and that's it, with no other purpose or meaning.
I think horror doesn't get its dues. Every major studio out there arguably got its beginning making horror movies. Universal Studio found early success with like Frankenstein and Dracula, and back in the 30s, and that allowed them, to make enough profit to start making other movies. And every independent production company, every independent filmmaker starts with a horror movie, pretty much. They find their success, they make their money, and then they spread out into like different genres.
That's interesting, because also New Line started with basically the Freddy movies.
New Line, Dimension, with like Scream and all the slashes in the 90s, and even A24 now started with all those weird avant-garde horror movies. And now they're doing like dramatic stuff.
Right. Yeah, that's a good point.
Later.
So in MEGA64, what are the things that like instantly, like what are the horror things that you've done? Right? Like what are the ones that leap to mind for you?
Sure. So I think my favorite is kind of an homage to my favorite horror franchise, which is Friday the 13th. Mm-hmm. And we have our own version of Jason called Game Face. We did a series of these videos, which basically are a slasher who is based on, he's summoned when you turn on broken video game consoles. Game Face will come to kill you. And if you are a fan of Friday the 13th, you can see we've directly even stolen, straight up just ripped off some of the kills from my favorite Friday the 13th movies and used them in Game Face. And, we've done like zombie videos. We recently did a video on Dead Rising, which ended with kind of like it turned kind of in like a ghost film a little bit. So,
that was so good.
Thank you.
I forgot about that. That was because I was writing down, because I juiced our notes. I wanted to hear what you would go to, but I've got my favorites too. I didn't write down Dead Rising, but you're right. There is a surprise at the end of that one where it all of a sudden becomes like a paranoia short film.
Yeah.
That one is so good.
The video is about a guy named Carl who will come and watch you play Dead Rising and basically like rank how you play it. And then the joke at the end is he never leaves your house, and he kind of turns into, some sort of specter, demon, ghost, whatever you want to call it, who's just haunting you in your own home at that point.
So let me ask you a question about that, because I don't know the answer, but I did at some point watching it, because it's Sean and he's playing Carl. And so I watched it like 2 or 3 times by the end, because I was like, I wonder if Sean is hidden in every shot. Like, because the camera you'll jump to an angle and it's you sort of like nervously exploring, because you're like, Carl's here somewhere. And I always wondered if like maybe somewhere deep in the background, if Sean is there, Like if you just look in the right area, you'll see just part of his face or the side of his profile. I didn't do a full Where's Waldo, but I was like, I wonder if he's hidden in there.
Sure. If
like in the Haunting of Hill House.
We filmed it and he's there a lot of times, but then we would edit it to, we would film it where he's there and he steps out of frame. And in editing it, we would only have the moment after he left frame and you kind of see his shadow move across the wall. So it, for half a second, your brain perceives like, well, there's some movement over there, but I don't see anybody.
Yeah.
And, he's kind of teleporting all around. He's in front of me and then he's behind me and
he's everywhere and nowhere.
Exactly.
Oh, that one is so good.
Yeah. Well, thank you.
I also want to shout out, and I'll just do like quick recommendations for our audience, who again should already be on your page as they listen.
A ton of them are, honestly. Like in our Discord, MEGA64 comes up like not infrequently.
Oh yeah, of course.
Yeah.
But people need to check out Firefall Fest.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. Halloween special.
Yeah.
Classic.
Yeah.
That one was crazy because they had no idea what we were going to do. They basically said, come on to this stream. You can do whatever you want. And we're like, well, we want to show up as goth characters, if that's all right with you. They're like, oh yeah, great. We'll paint ourselves up in goth makeup too. And we'll get a bunch of dry ice. We'll have fun. That's all they knew. And then we showed up and basically like we went there with the intention to just kind of ruin the stream. And, they just kept rolling with it. So as we were in the moment, just thinking like, well, it seems like there's nothing we can do that they're going to question. How far can we push the envelope here? And it just got totally like unhinged.
It's 2.5 hours long.
Yeah.
That's good. Crazy. Is there any part of you where you're like, because you guys commit to the bit more than anyone I've ever seen, or maybe more than anyone should. Is there any part of you, let's say at hour 2, where you're like, this is, I mean, what is there to do but stick through it to the end? But is there any part of you that's like, I can't even believe that this is happening at all? What's going on?
Oh yeah, you kind of go through waves of, I have a lot of energy and I know what I'm doing here. And then I've kind of done what I thought I was going to do and I'm out of ideas and my energy is waning, and you kind of just become quiet and internalize what you're doing. Luckily, there's 4 of us. So if one of us gets quiet and starts thinking, that'll be an opportunity for another person to kind of come to the forefront and start doing things. And as that person starts getting wild and stupid, it's like, oh, okay, that's giving me an idea and I can jump back in, and we kind of just keep handing the ball off to the other person metaphorically. I think in theory we could go forever, honestly. It kind of like ebbs and flows with energy level, but if nobody stops us, we'll just keep going forever.
It's unreal. So there's a highlight video that's like 15 minutes long. Anybody out there that needs to like dip a toe into what we're talking about, where it's literally like, you really did take over this stream. It was they were announcing a video game, and then your characters became the entire focal point of this thing. The highlight video will give you a taste, but I swear to God, I've probably watched the 2.5 hour video a couple of times.
That's awesome. We've done so much stuff. I don't even remember half the things we've done. And sometimes I'll just go back and put on a video and I have no recollection of even, filming it, because you're just kind of stream of conscious in the moment. You're not planning what you're just kind of like winging things out. You have no idea if it's landing or not. And then it's all over. And it's like, what did I even just do? I don't know.
Totally. Yeah. And it's been 21 years. It's like over 2 decades of that. So how could you possibly?
Yeah. So I have, flashes of recollections of, I think I had a top hat on. I think, I don't even remember what my character's name was. I've played that character many times and I always change the name. So
so the other thing that I know, I backed your comic.
Oh,
if you'd like to talk about Phobia a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for backing it, by the way.
Yeah.
Yeah, when I was a kid, I always wanted to get into comics, but I didn't really know where to start. I watched X-Men and Batman, the cartoons on TV, and I was like, this is so cool, but it's these comics have been around since the 30s or the 60s. Like, it was very daunting as a child to get into comic books. I didn't really get into comics until I was an adult in my 20s. And maybe around the age of like 25, 26, 27, I went to a comic book convention and I discovered all of these indie horror comics from the 70s. Things like Slow Death and Skull magazine, and Alan Moore had a run in the 80s called Future Shocks. And they were all just like really messed up, like horror stories, kind of like very scary, especially compared to what's being put out today. Even it really kind of struck me that comics have toned down a lot in the past 4 or 5 decades, and maybe some of that's for the better, honestly, because some of these comics were admittedly like sexist or even like vaguely racist. There's some stuff in there that would not fly today, but there was a lot of stuff in there that I thought was still really relevant and still really scary. And I kind of became obsessed with these comics and just fascinated with the idea that like nobody's making stuff like this anymore. And I still follow horror comics today, and I pick them up and I find that they are like rather tame, or maybe they're a little long-winded, that it's intended to be a series. Whereas these were just so short and sweet, and I really just wanted to write something like that. So I started working on my own project with local artists here in San Diego back in 2014, and that was the initial idea for Phobia. We're going to do short horror stories that have twist endings, and they're all like 5 to 7 pages long, and we're really going to draw inspiration from those old underground comics from the 70s.
I love that.
Yeah, and I mean, I became, all of my favorite comic book artists are from that era, like Vaughn Bodie and Greg Irons and William Stout. Like all of these artists, some of them are not with us anymore. Some of them are still coming to Comic-Con, and largely I feel like they are never talked about. And their art is so amazing and iconic and inspirational. William Stout did the design for the Tar Man in Return of the Living Dead.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, that's cool.
And I had no idea. I was at this comic book convention. I picked up one of his art books, and it was like, oh yeah, he did the character design for that. And that's like one of the most iconic zombies ever, you could argue.
Yeah, William loves Return of the Living Dead. So you're speaking his language.
That's like probably one of my top. I don't know. I don't really keep like a hard top list of movies, but that's up there. Yeah.
I was in 8th grade, and I think I went to a Halloween party at like a classmate's house, and their parents were just playing that in the back room, and I just sat in the room pretty much by myself. All the other like kids were in 8th grade party, like hanging out, and like, ooh, boys and girls are like cuddling up. I'm like, okay, I'm gonna eat popcorn and watch this zombie movie. I just kind of caught it like 20 minutes into it, didn't even know how it started or what the name was even, was just fascinated by it.
I miss that a little bit. I miss like not really knowing what you're watching, because everything is like you choose to click on a video or choose to watch a movie on streaming or whatever. Like I really do kind of miss just like scrolling around and landing on something that's in the middle.
Yeah.
And you got to sort of like reverse engineer. What is this?
Yeah. Channel surfing.
Yeah.
Nobody does it anymore.
I know. My husband has gotten into like, even some streaming services do have like some live channel features on them. And so he's gotten into going on those just because, it is nice to just kind of like flip around and catch something in the middle and, whatever.
Yeah. And, a lot of movies, they're boring for the first 20 minutes. And especially horror movies, you just come in the middle and you're right at the good part.
Yep.
And then there's a little bit of like magic, like, oh, I didn't even see the whole thing, maybe I'll go watch it again.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, weirdly, I've noticed that like a lot of the big streamers are starting to get into like 24. It's so funny that like everything just sort of like comes back around, where it's like, I think right now, I was just watching on Prime or something. I was watching Coneheads for a show.
Oh, nice.
It was horrible. It was horrible. We'll talk about that another day, Chrissy. But
yes, I've seen Coneheads in a while. I have vague, fond memories of it. Maybe
I did too.
As I remember,
I did too. Give it a try.
Okay.
Will thought that I told him that it was great, and I didn't. I told him that David Spade was great in it. So I led him down the primrose path accidentally.
Yeah, there's a big difference between David Spade being good and the movie being good. It's oh, that's not a funny movie.
I just remember he like plays golf at the end against the big alien.
That's what I remembered.
Yeah, that's probably not great now that I'm thinking about it.
Oh, it's long. It's slow and long. They really did it. Comedy,
Can't wait
slow
to
and
watch it.
long.
Long like their forehead.
Yeah, oh my God. Well, there was all this like UFO news today. I don't know if did you see any of that?
No,
not to jump from topic to topic to topic, but they did like a congressional hearing, which I guess they've done a couple where it's like somebody is declassifying news about UFOs. And I saw a video that I would swear is fake. And you know what? I still swear it's fake. I don't know. I saw it. It was shown. It is claimed that this is a real thing. It's a video of a clearly an airplane. And then these little things, just like these little orbiting drone kind of looking things, 3 of them hover around the airplane, literally like circling around it. It looks like in Ocarina of Time when you target something and the 3 arrows pop up, spin around whatever you're targeting. It literally looks like that.
Yeah.
And then at the end of the video, everything in a burst of light disappears, including the airplane.
Okay.
And this evidently...
They showed this to Congress?
Yes.
Yes.
This today, as we're recording, was released as like the latest dump of aliens or UAPs, as they call them now, are real.
Yeah.
I don't know. And like some guy on Twitter explained why that everything just disappeared in a zap of light. Yeah, it was total word salad. I don't know what the hell I was looking at, but it's out there. The truth and this video. And I don't know what to make of it. I honestly, I don't even know what the hell I'm looking at. It's hard for me to understand that this was shown in Congress today. I also don't know how valid that really makes things. Like, just because this was shown in Congress, does that mean we all now believe that this was alien activity? Like, I just don't really know the deal.
Yeah, I never know what to make of that stuff because it always falls short of being anything that is definitive. And my question is always like, okay, so what's the point? Just tell me the aliens are real. At this point, I don't need another video of
a tic-tac,
swirling lights or a tic-tac or whatever. Just confirm it one way or the other.
They make it so not exciting too.
Yes.
Like, and not that this is like a big surprise, but like just like the jargon of being in that setting. That's like, so we can confirm that the craft was sighted and the craft was, there have been claims of it being secured. And then someone will go, follow-up question, was the craft secured? And they'll go, affirmative.
Right.
It's like, can someone say, because what they literally communicated today is that we have an alien spaceship somewhere in the country. But like no one says that, so it doesn't sound as fun and exciting.
Yeah, that should be sweet. And it's boring.
Boring.
They do that on purpose. They don't want us to care. They
don't want you to care.
They're trying to trick us into watching political hearings, but it's not going to work.
I know. They just want the C-SPAN ratings.
Is boring like that.
Yeah.
It's not like everything else is like razzle dazzling, and then they make the alien stuff boring.
I know. I just messaged you the weird drone thing is around the plane. If you want to check it out later, it's bizarre.
Should I watch it now and give a live reaction?
Oh, sure, if you're willing to, yeah.
Your commentary track for this video.
Derrick Acosta's opinions on the recently leaked UFO footage. Yes.
What, you send it to me on Twitter?
Yeah, it's on Twitter.
Okay, I'll look this up.
It's short,
by the way, I'll wrap up my story about the comic book. Which sorry. It was a project that was started in 2014. It got shelved at the time. And I didn't know if it was ever going to happen until about 2 years ago. Somebody contacted me and they're like, hey, I'm a comic book producer, creator. You say you're into comics. Do you want to work together on something? And I kind of took Phobia off the shelf, pitched it, and it got resurrected. So we put it on Kickstarter. It got 182% funded. And I've been working on it ever since. So it's been about 2 years coming. It's all created now. I'm actually like talking to the printers, getting the samples for the physical copies, and we're going to be mailing those out
That's
really
amazing.
soon. So
I didn't realize that it was that long in the works from like a decade ago. It's weird. That is how it happens, though. You'll do something, and then someday somebody goes like, "Hey, I actually have the means to achieve something."
It was kind of a cool lesson. Like, don't give up on your ideas, even if you are with people who don't see the vision. Maybe you just haven't met the right people yet. Because the people I was working with originally, I was, like 27. We were all the same age. They left the project. Mm-hmm. And then, it was almost 6 or 7 years later, somebody who was much younger than me, who was then, they were basically the age I was when I wrote the thing to begin with. And now I'm older and they're a little bit younger, and I've finally made the right connections. So
that's amazing. That's great.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it was a dream come true.
Okay, everybody. Hey, we're going to interrupt the show for just a moment. Although if you're on our Patreon, we're not interrupting you at all, where there is an ad-free version of this very episode waiting for you. We just want to remind everybody that if you're enjoying the show, please check out patreon.com/GTTUpod, in addition to patreon.com/MEGA64, of course. Because on Guide to the Unknown, we're always talking about, folklore, urban legends, horror movies, but we also have our secret Patreon podcast, which we call the Netherworld Dispatch. And depending on the tier that you pick, and you'll see all the tiers and how they break down, you can get access to up to an episode of the Netherworld Dispatch every single Monday. And on the Netherworld Dispatch, we're watching clips of unsolved mysteries and beyond belief factor fiction. We play video games over there. The Netherworld Dispatch, we get a little bit untethered from the worries of copyright claims.
Yeah, we can watch things and describe them for people who are just listening to audio, but we also have a YouTube version and a backup video version in case that's an issue.
Yes.
So yeah, it's a little bit more of a multimedia experience on Patreon.
Yeah, go check that out for sure. We have so many fun episodes that we've been doing. Listen, we've been hitting them every single Monday without fail, knock on wood. But so go check that out. That's patreon.com/GTTUpod. Thank you so much to everybody who already backs us. And let's get back to talking to Derrick after one final commercial break. Okay, back to Derrick.
Whoosh.
Okay, let me all right. I'm watching, it's 2 minutes here. I have it on silent.
Yeah, I don't think there's anything to listen to anyway, but
No.
It literally is footage of an airplane flying through the air, and then you're going to see these little bits of debris.
Is this is weirdly presented. It's like frame by frame photographs. That's what this looks like.
Oh, really? I'm gonna pull it up too. I was just looking at it, but yeah, you're right. It is very stop motion-y.
Yeah.
Yeah, very frame by frame.
Okay, this thing has like the tumbling flying saucers around it. Apparently the original flying saucers, the first sighting in America, they said that they were like tumbling over each other.
Yeah, there's a lot of like confusing
cartwheeling through the air.
Yeah.
Yeah, this looks like the Predator is zoning in on this thing.
Yeah, you're right. It does like the three little lasers.
How is the camera? It looks like somebody's like physically moving the mouse to track this airplane.
And you're right, because the movement of the frame is smooth. Yeah, you see that? So you saw it. Yeah.
The airplane blew up.
It bloops out of existence.
This looks fake as hell. I'll be honest with you. I could animate this easily.
So
what is this?
The guy that posted this, not that anything matters anymore.
Yeah.
His name is Ashton Forbes. He's got almost 200,000 followers. He's an investigator. He physics, engineering, science live streams, so on and so forth, whatever.
Okay.
And so it has all of the hallmarks of some form of credibility. And presumably they're saying that this was part of all this stuff that came out today. But then, yeah, at the end of the video, the airplane just, in a burst of light, disappears like a magic trick. And his explanation for that was so confusing, but also I don't know anything, so maybe it makes total sense. But he was basically like, that's called the Schwingser effect, when the photons are just in the right order or something. It's just like, okay, I mean, you can say literally anything to me right now. I don't know what you're talking about. And that's also part of the problem. I'm not smart enough.
No.
Yeah, none of us are. I need like just more boring information. Like, what is that airplane? Was that a commercial flight? Was that like a FedEx plane?
Yeah.
Where was it coming from? Where was it going? Like, whose plane was that?
Yeah.
You can't just show me an anonymous plane blinking out of existence and be like, see?
Got it?
Aliens got it. I need more details.
That's a great point. What's your opinion of aliens?
I'm still waiting for the definitive yes, they exist or no, they don't exist. I think they set up that satellite array. What was it, like the SETI? Am I remembering this? Where they have satellites constantly surveying just random airspace looking for alien signals. They've never found anything. They've been blasting signals out, maybe hoping to get a response from somebody. They've never received anything. Where are they? That's my question.
Do you think that there's something out there? Intelligent life?
Yeah, I think statistically there has to be, right? Like, I don't, at the same time, again, my question is like, where are they? We have a certain criteria here on Earth that allowed for life to arise. And I don't think that criteria is unique to planet Earth. And I think that goes whether you're a religious person or a scientific person. I feel like like I said, the criteria we have here that allowed for Earth to come up, I'm positive that exists out there in space somewhere else. So why not?
Yeah.
I myself, I think that, life evolved out of whatever, the oceans. I'm not smart enough either to know the whole story, but I believe that, the process of evolution and that we went from fish crawling on the dirt to eventually evolving to be intelligent beings with a civilization. And why wouldn't that happen again somewhere out there?
Yeah, I think that's as far as I can really go with it too. It's not until they literally show us a spacecraft and a little alien person. That's about as far as we can go with just thinking about it.
Yeah.
All right, well, let's say on this train of thought, ghosts. Do you believe in ghosts?
No, sadly. I don't believe in ghosts. I wish I did. I really wish I did. And I probably did believe in ghosts up until I did my paranormal podcast. And
really?
Yeah. I convinced myself that ghosts do not exist.
You talked yourself right out of it.
Yeah. I researched my way out of it.
That's very interesting. How long? You weren't doing Mega Strange that long.
I know, but we had some really interesting episodes. We did a whole history of ghosts. I basically wanted to see, what is all of the evidence that has actually been collected that would suggest that ghosts are real. There is none.
Yeah. There's not one thing.
There's nothing definitive out there. There's a lot of like hearsay and whatever. So then I started just kind of going through the history of all of these supposed pieces of evidence, because that was one thing that I found really interesting with Mega Strange. We would cover topics that may or may not have happened. It's Bigfoot real, the Mothman thing event really real. I found it more interesting to look at the people who claimed to have experienced those events, because they were definitely real.
Yes.
Yeah. The stories might be fake, but the people are real. And what were they going through? And what was their life like at that time? One of my favorite episodes, I'll get back to ghosts in a second, but one of my favorite episodes was we went back and found the first time the word vampire had appeared in English.
Okay.
Because stories of vampires had come from Eastern Europe. And there was a moment when the UK newspapers started reporting about vampires, and they were reporting about this specific event that was happening where this creature known as a vampire was supposedly tormenting this town, and they sent the government sent some investigators there to figure out what was happening, and the British newspapers were covering that story, and I was so fascinated about just that single event and everything that happened. Um,
Isn't that a cool thing about researching this stuff? Like you can start out just researching vampires or whatever, and then you
yeah.
just find like this little detail within that and just kind of follow that. I think it's so much fun.
Yeah, you hear about these stories that are based in the real world, and I'm like, well, this should be the movie.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
You know
I
what that
don't.
reminds me of? We were researching crop circles,
Okay.
and I found out about these guys who are basically responsible for most of what we think of as like the crop circle phenomenon. Do you know what I'm talking about? Like these
I've
two
heard about
British
these guys.
dudes. Yeah, like that's so interesting to me. Is for people who don't know, these like two British buddies one night who were both artists were like hanging out at a bar, and they were like, what's something that we could do on a really large scale that a ton of people see? And they came up with the idea because they had heard of what is an existing strange phenomenon that's probably weather related, crop circles in other places, like far reaching places, because these guys were in England. They were like, why don't we do something based on that? They started going out in the middle of the night and making crop circles. And this was something that they hid from their families for decades, if I remember correctly. And that's most of what people think of as like the UFO crop circles. Like it started with these dudes. And that was so fascinating to me, as opposed to like aliens creating crop circles. There's really these guys. Like it's awesome.
Yeah, the two drunk guys sneaking out in the middle of the night, terrifying the entire world with these patterns. They're like mowing down in a lawn, and they're just like the only two people in the world who know the truth, and they keep it amongst themselves. That to me is so much more fascinating.
Yeah.
And isn't that therefore then more plausible than just about any other supernatural phenomena? Like the Patterson Gimlin tapes, the Bigfoot tapes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It was a guy in a suit. Like confirmed.
Supposedly. Did they confirm it?
I thought I'm under the impression that they did eventually fully confirm that. Am I wrong, Kristen?
I don't remember that. I don't know.
I could have sworn that one of the two of them, Patterson or Gimlin, eventually were like, yeah.
You could totally be right. I don't remember.
But like the idea that like you do something either for fun or as a prank or just because why not? And then all of a sudden, like the world is different. And like movies are made like that is unbelievable, and then makes you realize like way more plausible than there literally being a monster or a ghost or aliens that are leaving patterns in our crops.
Yes. What I love about that story, I mean, I do believe it was a guy in a suit, but I love that people could not prove it for the longest time.
Yeah.
And arguably maybe still can't. I'm not.
I know. I could swear, but I'm not gonna. Yeah.
But last time I looked into it, people were like, "Show me the zipper."
Yeah.
That's the costume. How do you get in and out of that thing?
Yeah, because there's no amount of proof that could ever be good enough to disprove something, right?
Like, my favorite devil's advocate argument was that Bigfoot footage was taken possibly even the same year as the movie Planet of the Apes. And Planet of the Apes won an Oscar for best special effects. And people argue that Bigfoot looks better than the apes in Planet of the Apes that won an Oscar for being the best special effects that Hollywood could produce at the time. And they're like, you're telling me two random guys outdid Hollywood in the middle of the forest with no budget whatsoever?
There's no way.
I haven't heard that before. That's a great point. I'm a believer again.
Jury's still out.
That was a real Bigfoot. That footage.
It could have been. But yeah, with ghosts, looking into it, it was really fascinating to me to see how hauntings have changed over the years. And what we experience as hauntings now in modern day, that's totally unprecedented if you go back 200 or 300 or 400 years. And I was looking at how ghosts in like the 1600s would manifest as like a glowing bale of hay in the road. People would report like, oh, I saw a ghost. It was a bale of hay, or I saw a phantom horse walking down the road. And they were not translucent, but they would kind of like glow. Yeah. And as there's a lot of reporting and articles about this that show that as culture, people have always been obsessed with the dead and contacting the dead and seeing the dead. It's always been a form of entertainment. And as that entertainment has changed over the years, our perceptions of ghosts have changed with it. So I think in the 1800s, they used to like shine a lamp through some glass images to project ghosts on the wall. I think it was called like a phantasmagoria show or something like that. And then suddenly people started reporting that ghosts were kind of translucent and you couldn't see their feet because that mirrored what was happening in those shows. And what was fascinating to me was that the first instance in pop culture of people trying to record ghosts on a camera or an electronic device is the movie Ghostbusters. And that once Ghostbusters came out, suddenly this idea that you could capture evidence of a ghost on a recording device took over mainstream ghosts. Nowadays, like that's all anybody wants to do to prove that ghosts are real. Like we're going to record a ghost. We're going to get the white noise recording of it. And I was like, well, that just comes from Ghostbusters.
Is that true?
Yeah, nobody did that before, the mid 80s.
I have had a question. So periodically we like on Guide to the Unknown, we have sort of like a rotating kind of formats. Like 1 week we're talking about urban legends. The next week we're talking about folklore. We revisit a lot of ghost shows.
Yeah.
So we have like a format where we watch Ghost Adventures and then sort of comment on the episode of Ghost Adventures.
Mm-hmm.
And something that we've talked about a number of times is like, I don't know if you watch any of these shows. Like this guy, Zach Bagans, who's like the P.T. Barnum ghost hunter of the day.
Okay.
They've got all their gear. They've got their EVPs that they try to capture. They've got their EMF readers. They've got the new XLR camera thing they talked about that can like pick up the stick figures of people in the room and be like, the ghost is over there. He's sitting in a chair. You can see the stick figure on the chair.
Yeah.
And like nobody ever brings up like, who told you that ghosts emit an electromagnetic frequency? Who said that? Who said that that's the thing to measure that proves it? But I think what you're saying is making me realize that if Ghostbusters itself might have been the source of using technology to detect ghosts, it literally could be the first breadcrumb down that trail to now Zach Bagans, screaming. That's crazy.
It is.
That's crazy.
And even, seances became really popular in the 1800s. Nobody ever tried to contact a ghost before seances. And now, even to this day, the idea still persists that you can communicate with the dead. Mm-hmm. But, before then, thousands of years, people never even considered that would be a possibility, that you could have a conversation with one, just, ask it questions and stuff like that.
Man, somebody just has an idea and it all can change. Yeah. Have you ever gone to a seance or anything?
I've never gone to a seance. At this point, I'm like the skeptic in the movie who is just primed to get really haunted. And
yeah, you don't want to court danger like that.
Yeah. No,
you've used a Ouija board. I don't know if it was on a literal podcast. On one of your streams, you guys used a Ouija board. So
yeah. We used the spirit board, which is kind of like the circular version of the Ouija board.
Oh, which reminds me, your studio has been said to be haunted.
Supposedly haunted. Yeah, we hired a medium to go through our studio and tell us if it was haunted. This was before I did the ghost research.
Yeah, this was older. Yeah.
Yeah. That was a fun time.
So what is that to you now that you don't believe in ghosts, so your studio cannot be haunted?
I don't personally believe in ghosts, but I will say that I leave the door open. Maybe I'm wrong. And one thing that I think you can't explain is when people are close to dying of old age, they will report seeing family members who have already passed on. They have visions of people who died previously that they communicate with, and they say like, oh, these people are coming to, assist me, usher me to the other side. Okay, so what's going on there? people would argue maybe on a logical level, your brain is releasing chemicals and you're hallucinating that, but it's such a widely reported phenomenon. Maybe that is a haunting. Maybe that is a version of spirits surviving past death and being able to come back. Maybe there is something to it, but yeah, I think we're talking about like poltergeists, ghosts in the
pop
house,
culture,
moving chairs or floating around. I'm very skeptical about that.
Yeah,
it's hard not to be.
Yeah, because you can't know. You don't know until you're either literally experiencing it, and then it's probably too late to really pass on to anybody. Like, I figured it out.
Yeah,
it's all true. I'm gone now.
I think it's more of like an internal thing. Maybe you experience it in your mind.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe a medium gets a feeling. Yeah, I think there's a spirit here. Okay, well, who am I to say what you're feeling or thinking or experiencing?
Yeah, totally. No, I like that.
True.
So with a newborn, I've noticed something, because like people say all that stuff of like, kids see spirits, whatever, and I don't believe that. But I do know, because Kristen, you've talked about this before, because you've done like death doula training.
Mm-hmm.
What's the thing about people look up in the corner of the room?
Yeah, during the training that I did, somebody asked like what did they ask? I guess they just sort of asked a general question of the person doing the training, like when you've been with somebody who's dying, have you had any experiences where they said that they've seen loved ones on the other side or anything like that? And or actually, I think it was maybe even more vague. I think they said, what's your take on the idea of people being able to see through to the other side? And the person said, well, I really don't know about that. We don't have anything about that in our training, but I will say a strange thing that's been reported regularly is people looking up into the corner of the room, basically where like the seam of where the wall meets the ceiling, and seeming like they are seeing something there. And that's something that's been reported widely. Make of that what you will. I don't know. It's just something that happens, but we really don't give instruction on this or whatever.
So with so I've got two kids, and I don't remember my daughter doing this, Zoe, but now, so Jack is almost 2 months old, and he's starting to already move on from this, but he would stare up into the corner like that, like, newborn's eyes.
He's a phantasm.
He sees a phantasm. He's a goddamn banshee.
Easy.
But like kids, their eyes don't really like focus or just stay on one thing all the time, but he would get kind of transfixed looking up into the corner.
Yeah.
So like the Y shape of the ceiling and the wall going down. And it really, like there's a lot of parallels between birth and death. And could it be something as simple as, that's the most interesting geometric shape in the room, the most contrast of shadows and light or something. But the idea that like I can't get over entirely, because I have a hard time having that door fully closed, because I kind of can't let myself believe in ghosts. I would love to. Is at the beginning and end, it's hard not to let the societal stuff of like you're more attuned to the spiritual world. It's hard not to
like when you're closer
you.
To the beginning and end.
Yeah, and the idea that like when you are a newborn, you're perceiving something that I'm not, and when you're dying, you're perceiving something that I'm not. But at the beginning and end, for whatever reason, the corner is this liminal space that catches the eye and transfixes you. I don't get it.
Yeah, I don't know.
I believe in the power of the human mind, and that is mostly unexplored and not fully understood what it's capable of. I've read that you can, take a ping pong ball, cut it in half, and cover your eyes with it and play like TV static. And after a few minutes of sensory deprivation, you'll start to hallucinate.
Yeah, the Gansfeld experiment or whatever.
Yeah. And, I feel like kids don't even really, when you're a newborn, the world is so new to you. You don't even know quite how it operates or how it's supposed to operate. And you just might be in that state all of the time, just taking in raw sensory information and just like seeing stuff that nobody else is seeing.
Yeah, you're looking at that corner and you're like, what the hell is that? That is not wall nor ceiling.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah, right.
I think you can get into a mental state where your brain is just craving sensory input and it is just filling in the gaps and you are seeing stuff that people are not perceiving.
Yeah, maybe.
Totally.
I mean, they also said that newborns, I don't think they can see beyond like 6 inches. So it might just be a complete coincidence. but I deliberately, I was like, oh my God, he's doing the thing that is claimed that people do at the end.
Mm-hmm.
He's seeing ghosts.
He's seeing it. My boy can see.
He has the sight.
He has the sixth sense.
What's the code to the safe?
He's Bruce Willis.
Yeah. All right. As we get to the end here, I'm just curious if you had to hit me with like a top 3 best horror movies or like your recommendations.
Oh man, putting me on the spot here. Okay, I will go with first of all, I've already said my favorite franchise is Friday the 13th. My favorite one of the franchise is part 7.
Oh.
That's not it's a new blood, I believe.
New Blood. Okay, for a second I thought it was Jason Takes Manhattan. It's the New
No,
Blood.
that's number 8.
That's also what I thought.
Part 7 is the one with the psychic girl who psychically battles him and raises him from the bottom of the lake.
Nice. Yeah.
Watery Jason. I feel like you could just jump in with that one if you've never seen a Friday the 13th movie. I think, I love Texas Chainsaw Massacre just as like an art piece slasher movie. I feel like it was the first slasher movie and arguably the best. It's unlike all the others. It takes place during the day. It starts with like a really quiet shot of a corpse and it ends with a close-up of this bloody girl screaming. Like it's kind of a masterpiece. I always love The Exorcist. That one really, I think that movie plays on people's fears in such a great. I love watching videos of people in the 70s who've just seen The Exorcist for the first time and they're like shaking and crying.
Yeah.
They feel like they're going to go to hell just because they watched the movie.
That's amazing. Because culturally, so many other things are so much more intense. I remember in high school, there was a girl that just wanted me to show her scary movies. And so I can't remember what I showed her, but I showed her like my favorites and she was always kind of yawning at the end. And then I was like, all right, well, we'll watch this one that's said to be the scariest, but I love it, but I don't find it to be scary. And when it was over, she was like petrified. I was kind of like amazed by that. It is great, but like, you're right. Like looking at the impact of the movie of the day, I feel like it's different from the impact of the movie for somebody who has not seen it.
Yeah. It plays on people's cultural fears.
Yeah.
So, I love The Exorcist. I also love just George Romero movies, the good ones and the bad ones and the remakes, just anything George Romero is vaguely attached to. I'm fascinated with.
Right on. What about horror shows?
I don't really watch television too much because I don't like the commitment of a TV show. Yeah. Every episode's an hour long. It's like 14 hours, give me a movie. I can give you 2 hours. I got stuff to do.
People keep recommending Penguin to me. And then when I found out that each episode is more than an hour, I was like, I already wasn't going to do this, but I'm really not doing it now.
Yeah. I watched the trailer. I was curious. And then I'm like, you're just doing Sopranos.
Yes.
All over again. He's got mom issues. He looks
That's
kind
the
of
worst
like
part. I did watch the Penguin and I liked it, but the mom stuff was the worst part by far.
Really?
Yeah. And it's prominent too.
They spend a lot of time on it.
Yeah, they do. Yeah.
In TV, something that I would like recommend, especially hearing you talk about horror comics.
Yeah.
Something that I don't do it all the time, but I periodically will like get into is horror anthology series, like older ones.
Okay.
So one that was recommended to me is the Friday the 13th TV series. I don't know if you've seen that one.
I used to watch that when I was a kid, but haven't seen that in years. Is that even available right now?
Yeah, bizarrely, they made a there's like an official release of it.
Okay.
And it has no association with the movies whatsoever, which is bizarre and like kind of fun in that like
Right.
trivia of horror kind of way. But once you accept that you're not getting Jason or even a slasher format, it's literally characters that inherit an antique shop, and in the antique shop are all these antiques, and that's where all the stories come from by and large. So like, here's an episode about a haunted doll, or here's an episode about like a haunted teapot, or just like weird random things. But then every so often, because the nice thing is that they're all self-contained stories, and like maybe episode 1 sucks, but episode 2's got something that's kind of cool. And because nobody watches this show anymore, it does feel fresh in a sense. Like you're seeing relatively inventive stuff because nobody ever talked about the show. No one's going to remake these stories. These are just like oddball one-off horror stories from 40 years ago. I think it was David Cronenberg who directed an episode, and it's about like a faith healer, but he's got these magic white leather gloves. And he found out that if he like touches somebody who is suffering from leprosy, let's say, they will be healed. It's not even faith anymore. It's the gloves are magic.
Okay.
But the cost is that the gloves are absorbing the illness and transferring it to the guy. And so the like attention and money that he gets is like at what cost? Like you're healing all these people, but you're making yourself increasingly sick. And then it gets very Cronenbergian by the end.
It sounds like, it's prime for some good body horror.
Mm-hmm.
And for TV too. It's like, it's really kind of gutsy to like see what they were going for. But like, I will periodically throw on like an old Twilight Zone or something because it's less of a commitment and you'll get something that's relatively inventive and bite-sized.
I love the Twilight Zone marathons. I love Tales from the Crypt, from the late 80s, early 90s.
I've been meaning to get back into that. I wanted to show Kristen, I want you to have to look at the Crypt Keeper.
I'd rather not, but
it's horrible.
I know. I don't like his voice either.
I saw a social media post that said the Crypt Keeper, and I don't know if this is true, but they said he was repurposed from the Chucky doll.
Yeah, I've heard that too. The eyes, the blue eyes.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah. There's my favorite episode, I think it's like season 1, is with Morton Downey Jr. I don't know if you remember this one.
I know the name, yeah.
He was like a schlock TV host and actor back in the 80s. And in this one, he plays kind of like, I feel like the episode is based on when Geraldo opened up Al Capone's vault. Morton Downey Jr. is doing like a live TV broadcast like that. And he's outside a house that claims to actually be haunted. And then they go in like a single take to explore it. And it actually is haunted. And he starts getting like tormented by these ghosts. And that's probably my favorite episode.
That's great.
That sounds good.
Yeah.
That's great. See that like what you're talking about with the comics, like just having a beginning, middle, and end weird little story. It doesn't even have to, once the episode's over, that story doesn't even exist anymore. No sequel, no nothing. It's just that. I know that you're not super into horror games, which is kind of surprising to me. But is there anything that I know, which is
too immersive?
It's too immersive. They've ruined my day. I can't even.
Although I will shout out again to everybody, your playthrough of PT is so much goddamn fun.
Dude, PT was too scary.
And then you made your own, skit of PT.
We did a parody of PT.
Really well done.
I played a game called The Mortician's Assistant. If anybody out there has played it or not, I had to turn that thing off. That was like beyond.
Will, didn't we play that too?
We did, and you were grossed out by clamping someone's jaw shut. And I remember just kind of being like, all right, let's get to it. Like, where are the ghosts? Like they really walk you through a process.
I'm extremely squeamish as a person. I can't watch medical shows.
Huh.
I don't like that either.
I'm a very visual person. And when I see that, I just imagine it happening to myself. And it just like makes me cringe in the worst way possible. So,
interesting.
Yeah. Filling the body with formaldehyde and like stapling the eyes shut. I was like sweating already. And then They're like, put the body back in the freezer, and there's a guy at the end of the hallway like staring at you. You're supposed to be here alone in the middle of the night. I was like, turn this off.
Yeah, this is supposed to be for my fun. I feel terrible.
I'm not having fun. Yeah, or it's not a good time.
No.
Is there any horror game that you do recommend?
Well, I'm currently trying to play Silent Hill 2.
Okay.
I said recently on a podcast that I couldn't play it. Somebody was asking me, why do you love horror movies and hate horror video games? And I said, horror video games get away with shit that you would never fly in a horror movie. You're walking through a hall and just some loud thing bangs next to your head with no explanation whatsoever. You couldn't do that in a movie.
Yeah, right.
It's just so cheap. Or you have these like creatures, like, in Silent Hill, there's bugs biting your ankle and then you die. You're just like taking damage. You don't even see what's happening. It's like, you couldn't make a horror movie like that. It's
100% relentless all the time with no comment on it at all.
Yeah, exactly. Just
there needs to be a button in Silent Hill 2, because I only played the original a little bit and I just got the remake. There needs to be a button where you can hear what the main character thinks of everything he's seeing. Because he'll literally walk down the street and see like the craziest thing happen, but you can just keep sort of like strolling past it like as if you're not seeing it at all.
He sees this like armless slug corpse with legs like scuttling in circles around the ground, and it's just no comment, like, oh, I'm looking for a quarter to put in the jukebox.
It is so weird. And then like his health is injecting himself with a needle that he found. Like you literally go to like a record shop and he finds a hypodermic needle.
Yeah.
That seems like the opposite of health.
If he can't find a hypodermic needle, he's like chugging Dayquil.
Yeah.
Dayquil bottles hidden all over the place, which I think is just so funny. Like, oh yeah, this pyramid head hit me with a sword. Let me drink 5 Dayquil bottles and keep on going.
I gotta slam this Gatorade. I'm all good now.
Yeah, exactly.
Jab myself with this needle, feeling better than ever. All right. Once again, just to recap, where are the best places that people can find and support MEGA64, Phobia, and you?
Well, if you want to support MEGA64, you can support us on patreon.com/MEGA64, and you get access to some exclusive content. We're updating that thing all of the time with streams. It's mostly comedy stuff or movie reviews. There's not a lot of horror stuff on there, but you can see our full catalog of videos on YouTube, and you can pick up some merch at our store. Just go to mega64.com. phobiahorrorcomic.com is where you can get information on my comic book. I just closed the pre-orders, but we have a newsletter that you can sign up for, and when the physical books are back on sale, we'll let everybody know through the newsletter and make it available for people to pick up. And you can check out Mega Strange on YouTube as well if you want to see my cryptid, spooky, investigative podcast.
Now I think you mentioned that you might be considering starting that back up again. Is that sort of like on the table?
We will be coming back. We're going to stop doing regular episodes, I think, because we were doing it every week and kind of getting burnt out. It's a lot of work to put these shows together. So I think we're going to focus on just making episodes that we think are really strong and really entertaining and just releasing them when they're done.
It's a great idea.
Yeah, we think that people will enjoy the content a lot more and they'll appreciate the level of effort that goes into it. And it just won't be, churning them out quite so often.
Yeah, I totally get that. Well, honestly, I really want to thank you for agreeing to talk with us a bit. I obviously I'm a big fan of the work that you do, and as much as I have tried to make the case for the horror aspect of MEGA64, I think that's just to make sure that our audience knows that there's like a bridge from what we almost exclusively focus on. But just like anything, I feel like once people are in the door and they start to know all of you, they're gonna inevitably want to stick around for everything because it's just such a goddamn good time.
And we talk about horror and the paranormal and everything, but also, I mean, our show is comedy and goofy and everything.
Just loose,
so
yeah.
It's an easy jump. I think everybody who likes Guides to the Unknown will like MEGA64.
Well, I appreciate it. And I'll let your fans know if you don't know MEGA64 and you want to see some out in public comedy skits that are horror themed. We did do Alan Wake, where I'm running around at night with a flashlight, just scaring random people. That one was kind of rude of me, I'll admit. We did a Resident Evil 7 skit recently that parodies that this guy's hands. It's a first-person game. You just see his hands getting like injured horrendously throughout the game. So I was walking around with fake hands with like bloody hooks in them, just like asking people for help.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think those are the two biggest horror. And of course, Resident Evil 4 was
that was the legendary.
The first big one we did back in 2004. So those are 3 horror themed video game skits you could check out from MEGA64.
That was 2004?
Yeah, it was a long time ago.
So that was a year in, essentially, right?
Yeah, that was one of our first big ones.
That's unbelievable because I remember that hitting and people quoting that to me like at the time. That's amazing.
20-year anniversary.
Well done. I'm glad that you all seem like you're in better shape now, and I really hope that continues because, again, I really enjoy the stuff that you do. I have, without saying specifically, I've been in meetings and stuff where I've referenced you and the things that you do with like your all-day streams, or just like really tried to take like kind of inspiration from the way that you've turned hanging out and streaming into as much of a like pillar of MEGA64 as doing the stuff that requires more production and editing and time to create. Kristen, you've been in those meetings where I'm like, we should, hey, everybody, listen, we should be doing what MEGA64 has been doing.
Yep.
And so the idea that things weren't going just smoothly was like everybody else. It was completely unacceptable for that to continue. So yes. I hope you guys are all doing much, much, much better because the stuff that you do is so much fun and a wonderful distraction when things get hairy and scary in a bad way in the world.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. You know, it's like 2024 has been rough for a lot of people, a lot of businesses, and a lot of industries as well. Video game industry had layoffs and the movie industry had layoffs. And like I said, we're a small crew, we're a small team. And it's those small businesses that are the first to kind of get squeezed out. And thankfully, we do have such a strong fan base that, you know, we kind of put the call out there to rally the support, and people really came in strong for us. And that was just an amazing thing for us. So we are able to keep going now because, you know, people showed us the love and we appreciate it.
Yeah,
it's awesome. It's totally well-deserved. And I'm really excited to see what you guys make next. Thank you. Thank you so much, Derrick, for joining us. This was really fun. It was nice talking to you.
Yeah, happy to be here. Thanks for talking to me.
What'd you think? How'd you like it?
I can't hear you. Well, what did you think? Check out the links for Phobia, for MEGA64. They're all going to be in the show notes below. A huge thanks again to Derrick Acosta for joining us. It was really cool to sort of talk for a little while.
It really was.
And I think that's probably going to do it for us here. Anything, Chrissy?
No, that's it. Thanks so much again to Derrick. Thank you, Will, for making contact with him and getting this set up. Everybody go check out MEGA64. It's really great.
All right, everybody. So until next time we meet on Guide to the Unknown, we'll be talking about something else, some monsters or some weird TV show where people are lying about finding ghosts.
Yeah.
But until that time comes, we must travel.
Back to the netherworld. Go we. Goodbye.
Arrivederci. Get out of here.
Be gone.